Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are Rich Allen and Robin Bairner. It's awards time, so fix your dicky bows and prepare your bombshells, as it seems in France at least, as the 2019 GFFN award show and all its glamour are upon us. But we will take a brief moment to look at the news, and then we'll head straight into the awards. Dijon will remain in Ligue 1 as they beat Lens 4-2 on aggregate in the relegation playoff final. A 1-1 draw at the Ligue 2 club on Thursday was boosted by a huge 3-1 win for the Mustard Club, who will be playing top 5 football again next season. One man who will not be is Christophe Pélissier, who has left Amiens after unrest behind the scenes to join Lorient in Ligue 2, while Marseille have announced former Porto, Chelsea and Tottenham coach Andre Villas-Boas as their new man in charge, as well as Rennes tying down Julien Stéphan to the club until 2022. In international football, France got a comfortable 2-0 win over Bolivia on Sunday ahead of their next European qualifier in Turkey this upcoming Saturday. And some brief breaking news in France. There is reports coming from a number of places, including Nice Matin and RMC Sport, that Sir Jim Radcliffe's INEOS have had their offer accepted to purchase OGC Nice, likely worth more than 100 million euros. We'll wait for actual full reports to come through, but it looks like finally that deal that has been muted a few times may be finally coming to fruition. And that's all for now. But to keep up to date with all the news in the world of French football, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. Right, let's dive straight into things. I have the winners all here and all the nominees. So thank you for everyone who voted on our polls. Your votes have been counted and been put towards our own selection committee that includes a couple of people you may know and have heard of before. And a few of us are behind the scenes here at GFFN to get our own awards. And we're starting off for this evening with the man who keeps everything out, really, with the Liga goalkeeper of the year. Their choices this year are Mike Maignan of Lille, Walter Benitez of Nice, Benjamin Lecomte of Montpellier, and Edouard Mendy at Reims. Robin, it's a great year for goalkeepers. I mean, strangely enough, for once, it's not including one of the top three goalkeepers you may, assuming you would mention sort of Lyon, Marseille, and Paris Saint-Germain. But starting at least with Mike Maignan, he's had a pretty great season. Given that the first campaign was a rough ride, he's much improved and even got a call up to the French squad as well.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I think he's been, for me, the outstanding keeper in Ligue 1 this season. Lille have obviously had the best defensive record. They've only conceded 33 goals in 38 matches, and I think that's a fair reflection on their goalkeeper, who's, as you say, he's come of age this year. He's obviously an excellent penalty stopper, but he's really matured. His all-round game has been much more solid. He's cut out a lot of the mistakes, and he's commanded a solid defence very well.
Yeah, and there's a great list of goalkeepers. It's nice to see some of these get some recognition this season, Rich. I mean, a few of these have had a great seasons previously, and none more really than Benjamin Lecomte, who we've mentioned before. When he was at Lorient, he had a good couple of seasons, and he got his moves to Montpellier, and he might even be on the move this summer, given some reports. But he's another one who's had an excellent season and deservedly recognised. And he's, again, also another one that's within the realms, at least, of the French squad as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you could make a very good argument for Benjamin Lecomte to be the most consistent goalkeeper for the last 3 seasons. Certainly this season and last season with Montpellier, he's been fantastic. Montpellier is so stingy in defence. They were terrific last season. They've still been very, very good this season, only conceded 42. And Benjamin Lecomte is a key part of that. Pretty much ever present, very dependable. No significant weakness. He's a very, very underrated goalkeeper that I think a lot of teams should be keeping a close eye on this summer.
Yeah, he's already muted a lot of times that he wants to be playing European football next season. He had somewhat hoped it would be Montpellier, and a couple of times this season it looked like it might have been, but he may need to go elsewhere for that. As for the final 2 nominees, 2 excellent goalkeepers, really. Robin, in terms of Benitez, had an excellent first half of the season as well, and has been great at ousting the former goalkeeper. His name escapes me at the moment. Really, I used to call him similar to Cardinal, of course. It came to me eventually, and Edouard Mendy, who's been part of one of the great stories this season of Ranson. They wouldn't be quite as good as him in between the sticks. So 2 goalkeepers that are well deserving of recognition.
Yeah, I think especially Benitez, he's been so central to Nice, who have obviously been a team that have been so reliant on their defensive record. He's been terrifically reliable, and as you say, he didn't even start the season as first choice necessarily there. And Mondi at Reims, who's been very, very solid. Again, another team that have been largely reliant on their defence. For me, he's not been quite as consistent as others, but yeah, he's certainly had a very, very good season and one that you can be very proud of.
Yeah, I think the second half of the season has maybe let him a little bit down in this award, and this is supposedly a tight race, but the winner for GFFN, we're going against the grain here, and it's Walter Benitez of Nice that will be taking the award. Congratulations to him, an excellent second half of the season and first half of the season. I thought he was in the running then, and I personally voted for him in the half-season awards, but excellent to see him get some recognition, and Nice's great defensive record as well this season under Patrick Vieira gets some recognition as well. On to right back, and there's a couple of really great nominees. I think this is one of the strongest categories out there, and the right back of the year has Ruben Aguilar of Montpellier, Leo Dubois at Lyon, Kenny Lala at Strasbourg, and Youssef Attal at Nice. And there's possibly 2 clear front runners at least for this one, Rich, and I'm going to start with the one that at least players of FIFA Ultimate Team will be thinking will be getting this award, and that's Kenny Lala. He's been excellent, especially in the first half of the season, whether it be goals or assists. He's contributed a little bit of everything for a team that's gone against expectations, and arguably if he was maybe a couple of years younger, he probably, or even arguably now, he should be sort of knocking on the door at least of the French squad.
Yeah, it's quite a weird one because in many ways it's been a season completely out of the blue, and that may be one of the reasons why bigger clubs might be a little hesitant in terms of coming in for him, as well as obviously his age as well, because he's certainly not really produced anything close to the season that he's just had. Either last season with Strasbourg or previously when he was with Lens. So I don't think many of us would have predicted Kenny Lala to be, the premier assist provider in terms of defenders. But 9 assists he's provided this season. He's chipped in with goals. He has genuinely been the ultimate in terms of a right back. And he's been solid when it's come to defending, a clear threat when it's going forward, and his crossing is absolutely fantastic. Some of the long balls that he's played have been really great. So it's nice to see an unfashionable player playing for an unfashionable team, putting in a performance like this throughout the the duration of the season. Obviously he's a cup winner now as well, and if he stays with Strasbourg, he's got European football next season. Whether he does or not will remain to be seen. But a very, very good season, and certainly one I think that's caught most of us by surprise.
Absolutely, and it maybe is a little bit of a shame for him that it's maybe come at a wrong time for him. At the same time, the style he plays does suit a bigger club if someone was to try to come into it. And I was alluding to someone else who might be thinking that their name should be etched on this trophy, really, Robin, is Youssef Attal, who's had a terrific season, especially the second half of the season, had a real electric display, I think, against Paris Saint-Germain, just as his name was getting out there a couple of games before for the hat-trick and so forth, that really put it on. He was sensational in that game, and he's someone they've bought for cheap. They're looking that probably holding on to this summer unless a crazy offer is, but the talent level suggests that maybe those crazy offers might come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Attal as well, you've obviously got the sort of added aspect of versatility. I think a lot of his best performances this season have actually come further forward up the park. He obviously scored his hat-trick when he was playing on the left wing, which is a very different position from right back, obviously. But you can't really argue with his numbers. I think he's got 6 goals for the season. he's been a real attacking threat, even when he's played deeper for Patrick Vieira's side. And as you say, he's been an absolute bargain. Nice are going to cash in and make a whole lot of money on him, and deservedly so, because he's played very well, and he's a player that's deserved to have caught the eye.
Yeah, my only fear of that sort of versatility of going forward is he may be pigeonholed into the Rafael Guerreiro sort of category of maybe being someone they think they can turn into a winger rather than playing as a fullback. I hope that someone come into him, they use him as a attacking fullback and give him that platform, because he's maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit, maybe not on quite the attacking flair consistently, at least anyway, in front of Cole, that maybe a winger or two, but he's had a terrific season. I
think just very quickly with him, I think Africa Cup of Nations may have a big factor, I think, in terms of, people now know him and know of him, and therefore, throughout the tournament, both in terms of the opponents he comes up against, but also just the general public watching, there's going to be a bit of an expectation on him. So how he copes under that spotlight, I think, will probably go a long way to dictating, is he actually the real deal, and ultimately where he'll end up post Nice.
Yeah, I would like to see him play fullback a little bit more, just to see if he can produce that on a sort of season-long basis. I mean, he's probably played about half his games at fullback and maybe about half of them as a winger. So it would be interesting to see just how consistently good he can be as a fullback.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. That's maybe why, even if they do get those tempting offers, that Nice might be tempted to keep him another season to give him a test, because they might not come in quite as sure. Let's touch on the other two then quickly. Ruben Aguilar has been had tough shoes to fill, with Nodi Mukiele sending off, being the more right back last season from Montpellier. He's had a decent season, and Leo Dubois finally making the step up to a European club at Lyon. Had some tremendous performances as well, especially against big teams as well. Both have had solid seasons and set up for what is probably one of the strongest categories.
Absolutely. I think, look at Leo Dubois. I think it took him time, I think, to find his position in that Lyon team. There's a bit of a battle between him, Raphael, and Kenny Tete in terms of who's taken that right back. But I think what you get with Leo Dubois is there's rarely anything spectacular with him. He's just very, very solid, very dependable. He'll. There's almost something a little bit Gary Neville about him, I suppose, in terms of a right back. There's nothing flashy. There's no amazing skill. There's very few goals. He's just very reliable. And he's throughout the course of the season become very, very dependable. And quite a key part, I think, of that Lyon defence. Ruben Aguilar, if you'd have asked me to name who my right back of the season was during the winter break, I'd have said Aguilar. I think he had an excellent start to the season. I was really impressed with, as you say, it's Mukiele was an excellent player for Montpellier. There were significant shoes to step into, but he stepped into them with absolute ease. Slight tweak in the formation, I think, this season as well, maybe has helped him. I think he's perhaps quietened down as the season has gone on, but I certainly think those first sort of 4 or 5 months of the season certainly put him in the reckoning for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And credit to both of them for an excellent season. But unfortunately, those two aren't the ones taking the award home. It is going to be Kenny Lala of Strasbourg, who had a fantastic season. I think the stats speak for themselves, and great to see the rewards for a player who, yes, has had plenty of Team of the Week players on FIFA Ultimate Team, which is what a lot of our younger viewers maybe have seen him mostly from, but a terrific season for him, and hopefully he can stay for Strasbourg's European adventure next season. On to centre-backs, and there's plenty of good quality here as well, which includes Marquinhos of Paris Saint-Germain, Christophe Herrel at Nice, Jason Denayer at Lyon, and Younis Abdelhamid at Reims. And we finally got a PSG player in there, Robin, as Marquinhos, who's not always been a centre-back this year and has sometimes had to play in midfield when needed, but he's kind of shown the defensive qualities in both positions really this season, and shown that he's probably, or almost certainly, I would think, PSG's best defender.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much doubt about that now. And I think what's made it even more impressive is that he's had to play alongside so many different partners at centre-back. PSG have obviously lacked a lot of consistency in terms of their team selection. And Marquinhos has not only shown versatility in terms of being able to play defensive midfield, which is an aspect of his game that's really come on over the last, probably since Christmas, but also in being able to slot in beside a number of different partners. And when he's been playing alongside somebody else, some random that's not Thiago Silva, it's typically been a player younger than him. So he's had to kind of be the senior partner in the defence, and he's really stood up to that challenge quite well.
Yeah, and credit to him for not being too much of a fussy puss of playing in midfield when needed, and had that excellent performance against Pogba in the Champions League as well, despite the end result. Another player that's had a really impressive season, although some may argue that the last month or so sort of maybe has hurt his chances a little bit, and that's Jason Denayer, Lyon. Rich, they've been looking for a centre-back for a while, really, to be honest, and they've had a couple of near misses is probably the best way of putting it for a lot of them, but all young players that have been poached by bigger clubs. But Denayer's managed to get himself in there. It was a bit of a question of whether he would sink or swim, and he's had a really strong season, if not slightly disappointing last couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, I think that, to be perfectly honest, I think that goes for the whole of the Lyon squad, though. I think he perhaps has been hampered slightly. Marcelo, who's been his usual centre-back partner, has not had a particularly great season, has become sort of focus of a lot of the Lyon fans' ire. So he's not had the most comfortable of partners at the back, but I think for the most part this season he's looked very good on the ball. He's looked very good in terms of positioning. We still sort of question, I think, how good actually is he? He's been around what's felt like quite a while now, but he's still only 23. And I think in terms of a first season in Ligue 1, he can look upon it as a success. Lyon as a squad and as a team obviously had quite an up and down season, but they've got Champions League football. He, by the looks of it, is probably going to have a new centre back partner come the new season. But I've liked what I've seen. I think there's definite room for improvement. I think perhaps he's a little bit ragged sometimes when it does come to sort of his tackling ability. I think can be a little. It's either reckless or it's not commit. There's a lack of commitment there. He needs to find that middle ground. That obviously makes a good centre back a very, very good centre back. But he's made a solid enough impression, I think, in his first season. There's a good grounding there and plenty to build on, I think, for the next season under new management.
Absolutely, and a couple more defenders that round out this list and had really solid seasons, stepping up. Both of them, you may say. Christophe Herrel, club-wise, from moving to Nice, and he's had a solid season in the best defence in Liga. And Younis Abdelhamid, Robin, he's had a tremendous season in as part of one of the best defences that have sunk in the second half of the season a little bit, but has been absolutely key to Reims this season as well. So both two centre-backs that have impressed, given that they've made the step up and shown that they're not against that and not Ligue 2 defenders, at least. Yeah,
I mean, they're far from Ligue 2 defenders. I think that's fair to say. Rich was obviously talking there about Denayer struggling to find a balance between aggression and just standing off a little bit. And I think if you look at Younis Abdelhamid, he's a player who's been excellent at that. He's played 38 matches. He's played every single minute of the season. I don't think there's another outfield player that managed to play every single minute of the season. I might be wrong, but that's testament to his discipline, I think, as much as anything else. I mean, if you look at the number of centre backs that miss a game because of suspension, it's very common. Abdelhamid's only picked up 2 bookings over the course of the season. He's committed on average less than a foul a game, and yet as we're sitting here discussing him as one of the outstanding centre backs in the league, which is really impressive. he's been strong in the tackle. He's been smart. He's obviously formidable in the air, and he's been an absolute standout. And obviously with Harrell at Nice as well, he's been very strong alongside Dante in what's been admittedly a defensively orientated team, but a team that's been very solid in terms of being able to accomplish the job that they go out to try and do.
Absolutely, and credit to both of them, but it might not come to much of a surprise that our Liga and centre-back of the year is the Brazilian Marquinhos. He's had a tremendous year. It's a shame that it's not been all at centre-back as we may have hoped, but he's certainly one who's going to be the real leader maybe of that Paris Saint-Germain team going forward. On to Liga left-back of the year, and admittedly maybe the weakest category out of the lot of them this year. Pedro Rebacho of Guingamp, Hiroki Sakai of Marseille, Juan Bernat at PSG, and Ferland Mendy Lyon. And Rich, I'll start with you. I think some people may point at this one and say that there's one clear front runner, and that's the last one, Mendy at Lyon. He's had another tremendous season, and there's rumours that he may be one of those players out the door this summer because they may be a kind of blockbuster offer in the outskirts from Real Madrid or the likes, and it'd be a shame to see him go, but at the same time, he's got a lot of distance he can cover, and he could be a really, really tremendous footballer.
Oh yeah, no, he is a quality left back. Again, another one that I think has it all. I think last season we were perhaps a little bit critical of his rashness, shall we say, and there were free kicks given away in iffy positions. There were penalties given away slightly needlessly. I think there's been noticeable work on that. I still think he needs to continue to focus that on as his sort of key area for improvement. But in terms of defending, in terms of going forward, again, he's another fullback that is that complete package. He's found himself, into the France team, and from what I have seen when he's played, he hasn't, that hasn't fazed him. He's made that seamless transition into that squad. I think it certainly looks as, he's making it as difficult as possible for Deschamps to pick, the likes of Lucas Hernandez and the likes of Benjamin Mendy once they're fully fit, because he's come in, he's made a claim that this is a position that he's got, and come and fight me for the jersey. And I think what's perhaps helped him is at club level, there's very little to barely any competition for his place. So he's playing week in, week out. He's not necessarily had, which has probably helped improve him, I think, is players in front of him for Lyon, be it Maxwell Cornet, be it Memphis Depay, be it Houssam Aouar, be it Nabil Fekir when he's played that way. He doesn't necessarily have the most defence-orientated or reliable players in front of him to help with covering. So, he's had to make sure that he patrols that left flank entirely. And I think he's taken that responsibility very, very well. It is looking like a move to Madrid is very close. And I think if they can get 40, if Lyon can get 40 million for him, that's obviously great business for Lyon, but it's equally as good business, I think, for Madrid, because they are getting, certainly I think, Ligue 1's leading left back for, in this modern age anyway, a pretty decent price for him. So a really quality defender who's only going upwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And admittedly, for the other three, it's been up and down seasons. Maybe you'd say Robin, Juan Bernat started pretty poorly, but has brought it together in the second half. Admittedly, credit to him for sort of nailing down that left-hand space for him. Hiroki Sakai has maybe been one of Marseille's better players in what feels like a lost season, and the same for Rebacho at Guingamp as well, as contributed where he can despite relegation. But all of them have had credible moments to him, especially Bernat, where at one point it felt like it was maybe a misstep after the first couple of games, that maybe he was over the hill or not quite at the quality that you expect for PSG, but he's certainly someone who's turned it around.
Yeah, he's certainly a better than an Eric Choupo-Moting, for example. Yeah, Bernat, I've actually been really quite impressed with him. I think he's been another player who's largely been pretty solid defensively. He's obviously contributed a couple of very important moments, particularly in the Champions League going forward. And like a lot of his PSG teammates, or certainly his more experienced PSG teammates, he's having to prove himself in a number of different positions. He's filled in at centre midfield, and he's done okay there. So for me, he's had a very credible opening season. He's not the sort of Champions League winning left back that PSG might be looking for, but he's a sort of player who can fill in and do a very solid job. Obviously, Hiroki Sakai, as you were saying, has been a bit up and down for Marseille. I thought he finished the season really pretty strongly, and was actually one of OM's best players. And Robocho, I think, managed to get 8 assists, which is really quite impressive for a left back, particularly at a club like Guingamp, who have been struggling so badly. I would still question his defensive abilities, but certainly going forward and in terms of his crossing, he's a very strong player.
Yeah, at least he, compared to some of the players at Guingamp, at least anyway, he made a contribution this season, which is a credit to him. But I think most people are probably knowing where this award is going, and it is Ferland Mendy of Lyon that is our Liga and left back of the year. Like Rich said, almost certainly the best left back in Liga and one of the best left backs in the world at the moment. And should he leave these shores this summer, it will be a great loss to us, but a great gain to whoever may claim him. On to the centre midfielders of the year, and some great names in this one. We have Thiago Mendes at Lille, Teji Savanier of Nîmes, Yann M'Vila of Saint-Etienne, and Marco Verratti at PSG. Some great players within there, Rich, and one that's we mentioned at the time wasn't really mentioned at all during the UNFP Awards, and that's Teji Savanier, who's had a tremendous season for Nice, a top assist maker in Ligue 1 this season. He's been a real credit to this league and a absolute linchpin for Nîmes as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nîmes as a team have probably been, I think, many people's success story of the season. I think the football that they have played for their first season back in the top flight has been fantastic. They've been warranted with they've been rewarded, with some excellent results, a top 10 finish. You really couldn't have asked for more than that. But I suppose you could, because finishing top of the assist charts was a Nîmes player, and Teji Savanier, again, a bit like Kenny Lana, I think, has sort of come from nowhere really, in terms of everybody knew that he was okay. There wasn't anything there that would perhaps give you an indication that his first season in the top flight would reap as much as it did for him. But it was just ridiculous. He went on a run. It wasn't perhaps consistent, but certainly there were periods during the season where he was borderline untouchable. In terms of his creativity, his vision, his actual distribution. He's got his eye in with some goals, and some very spectacular goals as well. He just seems to be a midfielder that's got it all. He's got that flair and that knack for a really killer pass, but he's also got the ability to really get stuck in when it comes to tackling. He's got the ability to hare around a pitch for 90 minutes. It's one that you do fear is probably going to be a bit of a one-season wonder. I'm hoping I'm not doing him any disservice there, but you look at his stats throughout his career, and there's really nothing there that makes you think he's going to be Liga top assist provider of 2018-19. So it probably is going to be a bit of a flash in the pan, but my goodness, has he really taken advantage of that, because he has been nothing short of spectacular for a pretty spectacular team, I think, this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And onto a player maybe that English fans may have been a bit confused about seeing on the list, and that's Yann M'Vila, who obviously spent time at Sunderland and may not even be remaining at Saint-Etienne, depending on who ends up being manager there this summer, Robin. But admittedly, like a lot of players, really, and a few players at Saint-Etienne, strangely enough, he's had a bit of a Ligue 1 renaissance this season.
Yeah, as you say, Saint-Etienne have been the team that have managed to give a number of players a sort of rebirth, as you were saying, and probably the most impressive of them has been in Villa. Defensively, he's just been an absolute rock for them. The whole team's kind of been based around his performances. He's only missed one game all season. He's been absolutely solid in the heart of the midfield. And as I say, just phenomenally consistent, phenomenally reliable, and he's been just a vital player for them.
Yeah, and they'll absolutely be hoping that they can keep hold of him with that Europa League run on the horizon as well. Just looking at the other two, Rich, Thiago Mendes had a tremendous season as well, maybe even one of the players that Lille are looking to maybe cash in on as well. He's been a really solid midfielder, adding to their attacking flair. And Marco Verratti, maybe a stranger choice, at least anyway. I know you're not the biggest fan of his season, at least anyway, given him what we've seen previously from him, but he's still one of the better centre midfielders in Liga.
Oh, he is. When he's fully fit, when he's got the right players alongside him, and his mind is focused, there's very little argument that he is one of the best in the league. We all know about his tackling. We all know about his tenacity. We all know about his attitude on the pitch, and that he is a slightly fiery character. It has, I think, perhaps been a slightly muted season, and that's my one criticism, I think, of Verratti, is that if I look back to, his first couple of seasons and what a prospect he was, that's probably my main criticism with him, is that I feel as though we haven't necessarily seen him develop to the fullest of potential. Now, what hasn't helped him, of course, is PSG have played so long now with a pretty substandard midfield, so he's not had the best of partners alongside him. But if PSG can bring in somebody that can work with him, they're going to get the best from him, because we have seen what the best can be with Verratti, and that is a leading midfielder in not only Liga but all of Europe. So the onus, I think, is on PSG, I think, now to support and help Verratti by recruiting sensibly, and bringing in someone that can work with him. Thiago Mendes, I've been a big fan of his this season. We've all been focused on those front three or front four for Lille, but behind them, you've got Thiago Mendes. They've obviously been so solid in defence. They've been such a potent force going forward. He's been that metronome in the team. He's been that consistent player there pretty much week in, week out, links that defence to the attack, allows and provides that comfort for those forward players that, if they all hair forward and they lose the ball, it doesn't matter, because they do have a player of Thiago Mendes' calibre and quality to mop up any attacks. And the defence behind him will be grateful for that as well. And it's part, I think, certainly part of Lille's success in terms of their defence has been the fact that Thiago Mendes has had such a strong season in terms of breaking those attacks up. So it does look like he's going to move on in the summer. About 25 million, I think, is what Lille are going for. And I think he's about 26, 27, I think. I still think there's at least 2 or 3 more seasons of high standard left in him. So 25 million, I think, for someone like him seems a bit of a snip. So I have little doubt that a top club will snap him up in the summer.
Yeah, Rich is a big fan of him, and it seems like everyone else has been a big fan of him as well, because our central midfielder of the year is Thiago Mendes of Lille. He's had a tremendous season, and it's good that someone that's a little bit underrated, that given his style of football and the sort of linchpin that he gives Lille, maybe even with Jose Fonts, would argue as well, has been recognised. So congratulations to Mendes, and it might even be a player that stays in Ligue 1, depending on how the transfer window ends up going, but we shall wait and see. On to attacking midfielders, and there's a cracking category this season, because these are 4 great names. There are Wabi Kazri at Saint-Etienne, Angel Di Maria at PSG, Jonathan Bamba at Lille, and Nicolas Pepe at Lille as well. Let's start with probably the headline maker on this one, and that is Nicolas Pepe. Robin, it's been a tremendous season for him, a tremendous 18 months, really. I mean, when he moved from Angers to Lille, a lot of people thought that there was two mind frames. There was a couple of Premier League clubs involved. They thought it was going to be a better move to go there, and some thought that the move to Lille was a little bit of a risk on Lille's part as well, because we hadn't quite seen Nicolas Pepe at the full potential that he has been. But finally, sometimes there is a slight late bloomer, you may say, at 23 compared to some players in the modern game. But my word has Pepe had a real breakout season.
Yeah, he's been absolutely spectacular. And like you said, since Christophe Galtier took over at Lille 18 months ago, he's been a vital player to their attack. We obviously saw Marcelo Bielsa try to use him as a centre forward, which was completely ill-founded and just a terrible, terrible move in the end. But yet he persisted with it. However, Pepe's shown that when he plays out wide, he can be an absolutely spectacular player, and in my opinion, he's capable of going on to play for anybody in Europe at the moment. If you look at his numbers this year, in terms of goals and assists, I think only Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi have managed better figures in all of Europe's top 5 leagues, which is astonishing for a player who's at Lille. And he amply deserves his move. Particularly, I mean, I think just to put into context that the numbers that he's achieved, they're better than Kylian Mbappe. Eden Hazard managed when he was at Lille, and admittedly Hazard was a little bit younger, but Pepe is certainly ready for the big time now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no doubt Lille will want to cash in this summer. Someone will offer the 70, 80 million that they're looking for, because he's a tremendous footballer at the height of his powers now, and in likelihood he's only ever really going to be getting better. A couple of really great names on this list. Rich Bamba's had a really good season, albeit in sort of maybe the shadow of his illustrious teammate. Wahbi Khazri's had a real renaissance, sometimes even as a false nine at times when needed for Saint-Etienne. And Sunderland fans again will be scratching their heads and wondering how players can play like this in green but not in red and white. And even Angel Di Maria, who was a sort of, you would say, one of the real star names at Paris Saint-Germain 2 years ago, but now is maybe in the shadows of a number of other players. But he's also himself had a terrific season amongst those, and really, yet again, the Argentine is a man of reinvention sometimes, and in reinventing himself again, he's found another slot in another big team.
Yeah, I think what I've been impressed with Di Maria is he's a massive name, obviously, and he joined off the back of a huge transfer fee. He is a global name in that team. He is one of those elite players within that team, but hasn't really necessarily allowed that to infiltrate his attitude. Use this season as the perfect example. So he's been asked to play a lot deeper, I think, at times this season. Has actually sometimes been brought into that midfield three, which isn't Di Maria's natural position. You'd expect him to be playing further forward and out wide, but he's played a little bit deeper, and he just got on with it. He's had some great stats: 12 goals, 11 assists. At times, he has been, the standout player for PSG this season. I think only really, I think Mbappe can rival him. I think in that regard, I've been really, really been impressed by Di Maria, because it would have been very easy for him to have sat back. They lost Neymar again to injury for half the season. It would have been very easy, I think, for Di Maria to have put in, sort of fairly substandard to basic performances, but he hasn't. He's not. He's rolled his sleeves up. He's worked really hard. He's grafted. He's got into those positions that he's not, I don't think, at his best at, but he's not complained. He's got on with it. He's got the benefit. He's got the rewards of a great season. I think in Europe as well, he's been a standout player. I think you look at that performance that he put in at Old Trafford in the first leg against Manchester United. I thought he was fantastic. Bearing in mind he was also facing a pretty hostile atmosphere, but again he played really, really well. So I've been really, really impressed with Di Maria this season. Khazri, I suppose, borderline fits those that have those that you touched on earlier with Envir and having that sort of renaissance. Obviously, he had a really good season with Rennes last season. There were fears, I suppose, as to was that a one-off? Was that just a sort of two fingers up at Sunderland for not giving me the chance? But it hasn't been. He's got the permanent move to Saint-Etienne, and again, perhaps towards the end of the season things just slowed down a little, but certainly the first half of the season he was absolutely electric. And we've said all along, I think the key thing that has been missing in Saint-Etienne over recent years has been at least a semi-reliable goal scorer. And 13 goals this season for Khazri has certainly been a key reason why they came ever so close to getting that third spot. But fourth place, European football, he has played a big part of that. And then finally, Jonathan Bamba. So Pepe takes all the plaudits, but let's not forget that 13 goals for Jonathan Bamba, who, bear in mind, Lille signed on a free, is again excellent reward. What will be interesting, I think, will be how he plays, providing Lille keep him as well. Once Pepe goes, will he be able to step into that role? Will he be able to pick up the mantle in terms of continuing this sort of goal scoring season? Another top goal scoring season. I've been impressed with him. I think some of his interaction, you go with the front three, including Akone as well. Some of the interplay between the three of them has been absolutely brilliant to watch. I don't think at times this season, I don't think there were a better sort of front three. The sort of relationship that the three of them had, the knowledge of where each of them were, where they were going to run in, the space they were going to run into. It was fantastic. Bamba played a big part of that, and it's great to see him on this shortlist.
Yeah, absolutely. A recognition for all of those players that have really been terrific, but unsurprisingly, it's the Ivorian Nicolas Pepe that takes this award. A tremendous season from the youngster. It would be a real shame to see him likely leave Liga unless Paris Saint-Germain can still put the money for him and decide to try and give him a chance to stay in Ligue 1. But if he was to go, what a final season from the forward. On to Ligue 1 forward or striker of the year. Emiliano Sala from Nantes, Kylian Mbappe from PSG, Andy Delors from Montpellier, and Moussa Dembele at Lyon. There's one really big name on this one, but one name that really should be mentioned above all, Robin, and that's Emiliano Sala. I mean, this season will be a lot different because he's not there, unfortunately, and it's even worse situation with him. Unfortunately, that his father's passing. It took a long while for Not to try and recollect their thoughts and savour the season, not just because they lost a great friend and a great compatriot, but a really terrific goal scorer as well in the first half of the season for Nantes.
Yeah, it's really difficult to know what to say about Salah because obviously the situation's so tragic. He was obviously going to move to Cardiff for a lot of money, but he was a guy who was enjoying comfortably the best season of his career. He was absolutely he was playing above himself. He was vital for Nantes in terms of his hold up play, his physicality, his hard work, and he was scoring goals like he had never done before in his life. It's just tremendously sad that he never got the opportunity to try and prove himself in England. And to prove that the first half of the season that he achieved in France wasn't a one-off. It's just had such a tremendous impact on the whole campaign. And he's obviously going to be a player who's never forgotten in Nantes.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the great thing I think sometimes about football is things live long in the memories, and the season he had and the connection he'll have with that club will sort of remain forever, which will be majorly important. But onto a man that's going to be mentioned a few times tonight, in all honesty, Rich, and that's Kylian Mbappe, who's had a tremendous season, 32 goals in the end. Tremendous amount of goals from the youngster. He's a real tour de force, really, in football. Possibly the next best player in the world, some would say as well. And still, at such a young age as well, asking for more responsibility as well. He's a enigma. He's a superstar. He's a little bit of everything rolled into one, and he's had a real. Well, you can't really say breakout season, but he's had a tremendous season that stamps his authority of one of the best in the world.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can add really about that hasn't already been said about Mbappe, and it's crazy that he's still only 20, but it has been a phenomenal season. It's the cynical world we live in that we're still thinking, is he going to be able to do it this season? Is he, was last season just a bit of a gold run of a season? But no, I mean, he steps it up season after season. What I've liked about him this particular campaign is he's had to do it despite the fact that Cavani has been injured. Neymar's obviously been injured for a significant amount of time, and a lot of responsibility has been put on Mbappe's shoulders. Now, responsibility is obviously quite a buzzword with Mbappe at the moment after his comments following the UNFP awards, but he really took on that responsibility, I thought, really well this season. It showed, and he showed exactly what he can do when he's played in a more central role. At times this season, he's been utterly devastating in terms of what he has done. 33 goals in 29 matches this season. It's freakish. It really is freakish stuff for someone who is only 20. We're going to get at least 3 or 4 years before he hits absolute prime. Whether that is with PSG or not, we don't know. But there's very little we can say now about Mbappe except for he is the real deal. He will be the next best player in the world. He's very close to it already. But this was a statement season, I think, for him that just showed, PSG can rely on him. That despite the fact of so many key players, influential players missing, despite the fact, they've had a defence that's been a bit iffy, despite the fact they've got a midfield that hasn't been functioning properly this season, he has still scored and engineered himself 33 goals this season. It is ridiculous, the talent that he's got. And I'll say it for the third or fourth time, he's still only 20. He's still only 20. It beggars belief, I think, just how far he can go. And I think really the only thing that will stop him going to be the very best in the world will be his own attitude. I think he's got the talent. He's performing all of this in a team that isn't perfect yet. I just think the only thing that's going to stop him is his attitude, is his temperament. Whether that's with PSG or not, I don't know. I personally can't see him being at PSG for much more than the next 2 or 3 seasons. Because normally, if a team like Real Madrid want a player, they'll get the player. But yeah, he is such a ridiculous talent. It's scary.
Absolutely, and that's why they invested so much money in him, and why they'll try and continue to do that as long as they can hold off the kind of interest from the likes of Real Madrid. The final 2 strikers on the list, Robin, 2 great seasons from both of them. Andy Delors finding some new fortune at Montpellier, especially next to Gaëtan Laporte. He's struck up a great partnership there, and Moussa Dembele, despite joining in January, has been really great, especially in the last couple of months for Lyon. A real striker finally after Mariano Diaz, that someone who can play as the focal point and will be a key cog for them next season as well.
Yeah, Delors had the best season of his career by quite a long shot, I think. He's obviously scored 14 goals, which is 2 better than he managed in his best year at Caen. However, I think, as you alluded to, his partnership with Gaëtan Laporte has been outstanding, and it's not just been with Laporte; it's also been with Florent Mollet in the midfield, and he's come up with 7 assists in total, I think, which has been absolutely vital to Montpellier because they have been largely defensively based. They've relied on their strikers for goals, and they've absolutely come up with the goods. If Delors and Laporte hadn't struck up the partnership that they had managed, they would have been in quite a bad way. But instead, they were obviously there or thereabouts in terms of the European race. And looking across to Lyon and Moussa Dembele, a slow start to the season. There was a lot of doubts raised about him, but then he obviously exploded in terms of his form. And there's even been talk about a potential move to Manchester United this summer. I would say that's perhaps a little bit far at the moment. I don't see him as a starter there, but I can't understand why he's not played more for Lyon. I know there's been questions about his technique and his link-up play to an extent, but I think in terms of his goal return, it's been absolutely outstanding. When Lyon have persisted so consistently with Depay and Fekir, when they've perhaps been below par, for Dembele not to have had more of a chance, to me is baffling, and it's something that Bruno Genesio deserved the sack for.
Yeah, it felt, especially towards the end, when even Genesio had sort of said he was going, and let's say the agreement of him going was agreed upon. He still left Dembele out as if he was trying to stick someone in the transfer window, at least anyway. But credit to Dembele for when he did come on scoring anyway. A forward of this year, I think it's hard to give it anyone else really than Kylian Mbappe. What a tremendous season from the youngster again, and he keeps going from strength to strength, and it's worrying how high he can go. Let's go on to our 11 of the year to round off the sort of positional awards, and obviously our goalkeeper will be Walter Benitez. Right back will be Kenny Lala. Left back will be Ferland Mendy. We do need an extra centre back with Marquinhos, and we have the three to pick from. I'll get a vote from you both. I'll start with yourself, Rich. What centre back would you have join our 11?
I just think for how good they have been in terms of defence and defensive organisation this season, I'd go Christophe Herrel of Nice. Robin?
I'd go for Yunus Abdelhamid, to be honest.
It's me to split the tie as well. That's absolutely fine, because I will go with you, Robin. I know another person who will be joining me, and I know Adam White's a big fan of Yunus Abdelhamid as well, and the terrific season he's had, and the longevity he's shown this season as well. Like you mentioned earlier, Robin, is a real testament to his ability, and Rance's excellent defensive in Christophe Herrel, close third, but Yunus Abdelhamid will be joining Marquinhos in midfield. In defence and midfield. We do need someone to partner Thiago Mendes. There's three names there. I'll come to you this time, Robin. Who do you add in midfield with Mendes?
I'm going Teji Savanier just because I think he's had an outstanding season. It's probably a one-off him, but I think he deserves the recognition.
Rich?
I would love to say Yann M'Vila. I think he has been fantastic this season, but you can't not have Teji Savanier in your team for such a fantastic season. So he gets my vote.
Yeah, I think if we may even mention him a little bit later on tonight, but if he's in an award potentially later on tonight, he probably almost certainly needs to be central midfielder of in the Ligue 1 11. I'm slightly surprised he didn't get the actual award, but it will be Teji Savanier joining Thiago Mendes in midfield. Let's have an extra winger to join Nicolas Pepe. Then, Rich, who should we have in that team?
It's a tough one, but I just for what he's done and the manner he's done it in this season, I think I'll go Angel Di Maria.
Robin?
Yep, that's another vote for Di Maria for me.
Yeah, I think we were all going to go pick Angel Di Maria. Wahbi Khazri's close for me. I've really enjoyed his season, but Di Maria's had an excellent season, so he'll be on one wing, flanking the strikers, and Nicolas Pepe on the other. Who shall join Kylian Mbappe up front? There's three terrific choices there. Robin, who do you pick?
It's a tough one. I think purely for sentiment, I'm going to Emiliano Sala.
Rich?
It's difficult not to, isn't it? You know, he was having such a terrific season, and as Robin said, it is such a tragedy. We don't want to necessarily see it as a hugely emotional vote, because let's just be frank. Prior to his move to Cardiff, he was fantastic. He was probably second only to Mbappe in terms of strikers in Ligue 1. So I think, I'd be going Salah as well. Yeah,
he totally made our half team of the season on merit, and he'll make our full season on merit as well. I mean, if the other name is Moussa Dembele on that one, and he's only been playing since January and scored plenty of goals, then I'm thinking he's well worth the vote, and not just on sentimental reasons. And it's terrific to see Salah join Mbappe up front in our League 11 of the year. So just to summarise, just before we move on to more individual awards, it's Morta Benitez in goal, Kenny Lala at right back, with left back being occupied by Ferland Mendy, centre backs Marquinhos and Yunus Abdelhamid, centre midfield Thiago Mendes and Teji Savanier, wingers of Angel Di Maria and Nicola Pepe, and up front Emiliano Sala and Kylian Mbappe. Let's go on to our young player of the year for some more of the individual awards, and some great names here that some of them haven't been mentioned so far. And that's one that's returning is Kylian Mbappe of PSG, Jonathan Ikone of Lille, Houssem Aouar of Lyon, and Remy Oudan of Reims. And I want to start with that last name I've mentioned of Oudan. To start with, Robin, he's had a really terrific season. I mean, Reims for the first half of the season were very defensively minded and added a bit of spark in January to be a bit more creative in the second half. But the constant, at least in terms of actually getting the goals, has been Oudan, and unsurprisingly, he's been linked with a number of Liga clubs this summer because he might be just a spot that other clubs are looking for as well.
Yeah, that's right. He's really been a handful at the head of their attack. And it's probably come as something of surprise even to him, because he was a relatively regular goal scorer in League 2 last season, but I don't think anybody would seriously have expected him to make the step up and hit double figures in his first Ligue 1 campaign. So I think there's a huge amount of credit that he deserves. I think Ross, as you kind of alluded to there, have actually improved quite a lot going forward over the second half of the season, and I think they've got quite an exciting attacking line now, and Oudan's certainly a very important part of it.
Absolutely, and if they can manage to somehow keep their hands on him, it'd be a massive plus for them. But you just feel like a Europa League side, or even maybe one of the Champions League teams, may take a risk on him. The other two players, at least other than Mbappe on this list, Rich, involve players maybe a little bit unsung for their clubs. Ikone in the shadow of Pepe, and possibly really in the shadow of Bamba in terms of his actual output of goals and assists, but still a key part of that sort of ever-moving attacking force with Rafael Leao as well at times, or even Loic Remy. And Houssem Aouar, who's had moments that have disappointed compared to last season, maybe not quite as spectacular and the sort of breakout campaign he had last time out, but still a very important cog for Lyon, and potentially even next season will be more important to them then.
Yeah, I think Ikone. It was a really good season for Ikone. It was probably his first season where he really nailed down a starting position. He never really made it through at PSG. He had 2 loan spells with Montpellier, but again, even there, he struggled, I think, to get a starting position in the team. And even when he did, it was played a lot deeper than we have seen him deployed at Lille. They've pushed him further forward. He's been part of that trio that have been so exciting this season. I think you're right in saying that he is probably, in terms of podium positions of those 3, he's probably in that 3rd spot. But like Jonathan Bamba, I think it'll be interesting to see how he plays and how he can adapt in a post Pepe Lille. But I think as far as a first season of regular football goes, I think big success for him. Houssem Aouar, obviously, his big breakthrough season was last season. This season perhaps hasn't quite reached those consistent levels he hit last season. I think my theory anyway behind this is that we were all expecting Fekir to leave last summer. And I think had he done, Houssem Aouar becomes, Mr. Creativity, Mr. Playmaker, Mr. Linchpin for that Lyon team. He didn't, and so when Aouar played, it was generally in a slightly wider position than I think Aouar would normally have preferred. I think a big sign of how much Lyon value him and trust him is the fact they gave him that really Lyon anyway, that really prestigious number 8 shirt. He is the player that Olas has said that they want to keep. Juninho has come in, has made it very clear that he wants Aouar to stay, that Aouar is going to be a big part of the team next season. I think he finished the season really strongly. Really impressed with how he finished the season. I think that really showed what he can do. When he is that sort of key integral player of a team, he is capable of producing some extraordinary things. He's obviously with the under-21s now. It'll be interesting to see, how his summer goes with them. But again, you can't. He set the benchmark very high last season, and I don't think he's overly disappointed this season. And then that just leaves. I think that's. Yeah, because the other one's Mbappe, of course. We've spoken about.
I think we've already mentioned him somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but unsurprisingly as well, even though we haven't talked about him a little bit on that topic, it is Kylian Mbappe who wins our Young Player of the Year. I mean, he could win it every season for the next 3 years, really, to be fair, which is mildly frightening of how talented the youngster is, but he does get the award there again. Ligue 1 breakout start of the year has some really interesting names in this one, and that's Boubacar Kamara at Marseille, Adrian Thomason at Strasbourg, followed by his compatriot Nuno Costa also at Strasbourg, and Gislan Konan at Reims. A couple of really interesting players, and I want to start off with Boubacar Kamara at Marseille. Robin, a number of clubs have looked at him as well. He's had finally sort of broke into the team on a permanent basis. We saw him in splits and splutters end of last season, start of this, but finally nailed down a place in front of real experienced campaigners like Adil Rami, and he's really made the position his own now as well.
Yeah, it's obviously been a little bit complicated this season at Marseille, simply because they've been so erratic defensively. There's been a lot expected of Kamara for quite a long time now, and there's a bit of a question as to whether he might make the grade as a midfielder or a defender. But obviously he's slotted in there at centre back because there's no other solid options, and he does look like a player that could go very far in the game. Obviously very solid, very athletic. There's a lot of talk about Premier League teams coming in and looking at him this summer, and that's understandable given his attributes. I think he's probably cut out most of the inconsistent mistakes that have perhaps plagued him in the past. And I think, considering that he's been largely playing beside Kaleta Sarr, it's been a very impressive breakthrough campaign for him, simply because he's not had an experienced centre back to play alongside. So yeah, he amply deserves recognition in this award.
Yeah, absolutely. And on to the two Strasbourg players on this one, Rich, because they've had a real great season that started terrifically, petered out, but obviously was sort of because of extenuating circumstances that was their Coupe de la Ligue final that they went on to win European football next season, had a decent finish to the season even, and both Thomason and Da Costa have been interesting factors for both of them, both scoring, creating, and giving them the real impetus as well for this team to have the platform to have such an impressive season.
Yeah, exactly. I think Thomason, we saw with Nantes, he was a good. There's nothing, again, another player that has really had that stellar season, because he was a solid enough midfielder, but certainly nothing spectacular. But he got his move. I think it was a free transfer as well to Strasbourg, and he has been a real vital player in that midfield. He is certainly of a box to box variety midfielder. I think probably he's been getting forward a little more than in his Nantes days, and maybe that's just akin to the slightly more attack minded style that Strasbourg play compared to the much more defensively minded Nantes. But again, he has been a vital player in that Strasbourg team, who have obviously impressed so well this season and got that Coupe de la Ligue success. So, justified breakout season, I think, because prior to that he was okay, but I certainly wouldn't be, clamoring for him to be joining my team. But Strasbourg have done really well, I think, to get the best out of him this season. And then again, Da Costa, a hugely important source of goals, I think, for Strasbourg, source of creativity. What I quite like about Strasbourg as a team is that they do distribute the goals around. You look and not one person has got a huge glut of goals. It's 10 goals here, 9 goals here, 8 goals here. It is really well spread. But the same goes for the assists as well. They've got creativity throughout that team, and in Nuno da Costa, I think they really do have a really good player there. 8 goals, 5 assists. Again, there's not much more you can say other than just how important he has been to Strasbourg's success this season.
Yeah, whether it be from the start or whether it be as sort of a substitute to come on and make an impact, Da Costa's had a really good season. I mean, it's been surprising sometimes that he has been on the bench given the sort of output he has, but at the same time, the sort of the speed he attacks with, the sort of extra vigor he gives the team whenever he's on the pitch, it's not surprised to see him really helping them perform this season. The final one on this list. Robin, Gislan Conan, another player of that Raz defence that really dominated the first half of the season and gave them the platform to be in that mid-table finish. He's certainly one that maybe other clubs maybe look at trying to poach this summer if they can, because he's had a terrific season.
Yeah, I'd quite like to go back to Thomason just for a second.
Go ahead.
I think it was partly due to the position he was playing in Nantes, because when he broke through at Evian, I think it was 2014-15 season, he was a player I really, really liked. He looked really good in an attacking midfield position. And then when he moved to Nantes, he was suddenly not quite a defensive midfielder, but he was much more of a central midfielder. He wasn't given the creative license he was at Evian, and he certainly faded a little bit. And when he went to Strasbourg, he, as Rich said, he's been given a little bit more of an opportunity to attack. So while it's obviously nice to see him make a breakthrough season, it doesn't come as a complete surprise to me that a change of clubs kind of reinvigorated him. But to go back to Conan, I personally can't see him getting a move this summer just because he spent the second half of the season injured. But obviously the first half of the season he was one of the most impressive fullbacks in the league. I think we would have seen him as a strong contender to be for the team of the year if he had stayed fit. He looked very solid defensively, looked very capable going forward, and it'll be good to see if he can replicate that in the forthcoming campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to Conan on that. He's real disappointment that he did pick up that knock that sort of has curtailed his season that had been so excellent for him. But fair play to him if he can rediscover that form at RAS next season. Should he still be there, then I'm sure we'll have him on these lists yet again. But a Ligue 1 breakout out of the star of the year could have been any of these players. Really, they've all had terrific moments, but it is Marseille's Boubacar Kamara. They'll hope that they can be a linchpin for them for next season, heading into the, let's say, second phase of their Champions project, at least anyway. Liga top signing of the season, and there's so many that a few have been probably left off of this list, and the 4 that have been chosen by our select committee are Jose Font at Lille, Florent Mollet at Montpellier, Arba Zanelli of Reims, and Timothy Kolodjijak at Saint Etienne. Rich, I'm going to let you select which one you want to talk about, because there's 4 great names in there and 4 real contenders. Go ahead. Who would you like to talk about?
I'll go for the player that I picked, and that is Jose Font. I think he's been unbelievable. There was a little bit of a joke, I think, certainly this side of the channel when Lille signed him. He's over the hill. He was so great with Southampton. Didn't really work out at West Ham. Went to China. Obviously got his money's worth there. But 35 years old. Was he the kind of player that Lille needed? Certainly, at the start of the season, were thinking, nah, this, he's not going to have the legs. He's not going to be. He'll be in and out of the team. Fitness issues, this, that, and the other. And I've been absolutely proved completely wrong. He has been an absolutely fantastic acquisition for Lille. I think his presence in the centre of that defence has been superb. There is a reason why why Lille have conceded so few this season. Mike Maignan is one of the key reasons, yes, but Jose Font is certainly another. I think at 35 years old to put in the level of performances he has done week in, week out, it's not anything flashy. He just does the basics very, very well. And that's all Lille, I think, needed in that defence. So for me, unquestionably, he has been the signing of the season. I think what he has brought to Lille has been a huge factor why they got second so impressively.
Absolutely, and credit to him. Just don't link him with Manchester United again, and it might ruin his form again, really. I'll let you pick out the last three as well, Robin. There's some great names, Mole, Zanelli, and Kolosicek as well. They've all been great for their teams, but who would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I'd go with Timothy Kolosicek of Saint Etienne, largely because they've leaned so heavily on him this season. The other centre-backs, Luc Perrin and Nevin Subotic, haven't been quite at it. Particularly Subotic has been terrible in the second half of the season and justly dropped. Kolosicek's done an outstanding job in the centre of the defence when called upon. He's also worked well at left-back when required. He's obviously at Saint Etienne. He's only on a loan basis, I think, from Tigres. And he could be the signing of the season again next season if they manage to complete that deal on a regular on a full-time basis. I think he's just been exceptionally solid for them. He's provided such a great platform, and yeah, a great piece of business to get him in.
Absolutely, and great to do it on these kind of deals, because the last two, Zanelli and Mole, I'll have a little bit of a talk about, because I'm pretty sure everyone at home will be thinking of the person I will be voting for, and Oba Zanelli has had a terrific half the season at Reims, added a real impetus to them, creativity, even goals as well. I know he's adored dearly in Kosovo for what he's done for his nation in such a small time, scoring really important goals and showing up and showing his love for the nation as well, even in its early steps in the sort of UEFA qualifying rounds and even a chance at European Championships. He's exactly the kind of player Ras has needed, and maybe it's only a half step for him towards other big things, maybe come this time next summer, but a player that Ras will be delighted to keep on the books, and someone I will thoroughly enjoy for another couple of, hopefully another year at least. But my actual vote went to Florent Morley at Montpellier. I think he's had a tremendous season since joining from Metz. A creative flair that they needed as a winger, as an attacking midfielder. Whenever he's needed, he's shown up. He scored some terrific goals, some great assists. He's really contributed to a team that looks transformed this season. The Zakarian teams always feel like defensive powerhouses, and Montpellier have turned into a offensive juggernaut at times sometimes, which seems so strange to think about, but he's been a real factor in that. But the winner of our award is Jose Font of Lille. A terrific season for him. I mean, like Rich said, I think a lot of people may have thought he was a little bit over the hill, but it just shows you sometimes that talent. Well, it's the classic statement of form is temporary, class is permanent, and Font has had a tremendous season. On to the one that no one really wants to win. Ligue 1 flop of the season, and the nominees on this one are Sori Kaba at Dijon, Leandro Paredes at PSG, Nasser Chadli at Monaco, and Nemanja Radonjic at Marseille. It's not been a great year for any of these players, but Robin, for Leonardo Paredes, it's been poor. It's been disappointing every time he's made the field, at least. But not only that, he's in sort of the tug of war of the sort of powers that be, trying to, well, it should be an indictment of him, because each one is trying to blame the other for his signing. So it's not the greatest of looks, is it?
No, and I think when you see the amount of money that he moved to PSG for, it's embarrassing, frankly. I'm not entirely sure what he's meant to do in the PSG team. It doesn't look like he's entirely sure. It doesn't really look as though he can bring anything to the team. He just looks like a poor man's. Well, we've been having this discussion internally with some colleagues, and he looks like a poor man's Michael Carrick. He just simply doesn't do anything. And for, I think it was 45 million euro, it's just a complete waste. It seems like his career at PSG is already over, and just terrible, just terrible.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure what you're talking about. A poor man's Michael Carrick, or the very, very poor man's Michael Carrick. I think you might find on that one. To be
A
fair,
pauper's Michael Carrick, I think, would probably be the way to
yeah,
describe it.
yeah. Maybe my version of Michael Carrick. Maybe if I try to intimidate him, imitate him on the field, maybe is what Paredes is doing at the moment. At least Nasser Chadli is another one that at least English fans will remember greatly. Rich, he had some decent years in English football, but even in the mess that was Monaco, he was a non-factor really.
Yeah, he probably sort of sums, to a degree anyway, sort of sums up Monaco this year. You felt it was a little bit of a panic buy. Yeah, they'd obviously bought so many really, really young players, sort of 16, barely any football. They felt, oh God, we better bring someone a bit experienced in. Quick Google search, who's available on the cheap, who's available on the free. Okay, he played at the World Cup. Let's bring him in. No real thought, I think, as to what he could offer the team. No real thought as to where he would play. He got 60. He played 16 games, but no goals, no assists. It was just a bit of a pointless signing, a bit of a waste of money in terms of wages. Probably that time and effort that went into signing him could have been better spent bringing in other players. Just a really disappointing signing. But I suppose the argument is if you weren't expecting much to begin with, could it really be as much of a disappointment? But he's failed on all counts, so really not great.
I think for 15 million odd euros, I think Monaco would have been expecting something, and he provided absolutely nothing. He didn't even look like a footballer at times. He was another player who was just simply terrible.
The fact that Rich, much like Rich picked up, if you'd have told me he'd played 16 appearances this season, even coming off the bench, I'd have told you lying. To say you were an anonymous at a club that did absolutely nothing is a pretty sad statement of affairs. The other two, Robin, Nemanja Radonjic maybe didn't have a fair shake of the stick. He's had a couple of chances in the last half of the season and done moments that are okay, but a lot was expected of him. And this list was sort of done a couple of weeks before the end of the season. So sorry, Kaba, despite his poor season, has probably played the most important part of Dijon's season now with his tackle of the goalkeeper Vashu in the second leg of the relegation playoff. So he's probably redeemed anything he had in terms of flop of the signing as well, just in that one game.
Yeah, he's obviously arrived in January from Elche, and there was a lot expected of him. He didn't until last night. He hadn't done anything at all. But as you said, securing Dijon's Ligue 1 status probably eradicates him a little bit from this list. Obviously, we'll want to see a bit more from him in the future. And Radonjic, like you say, wasn't really given a fair crack initially, but when he has been given a chance, he's really not performed up to standard. I think there's been maybe one or two games where he's kind of looked like he might become a player, but he's certainly not provided what Marseille would hope from him yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do this year. Is it cash in time, or is it maybe give him a second chance? We shall see, at least anyway. The winner of our award this season, and all four of them are deserving in one way or the other. But it goes to Nasser Chadli, the anonymous man at Monaco. Unfortunately, gets the accolade of flop signing of the year. Four more awards to go at least anyway, and some of our favourites to come, including Ligue 1 Manager of the Year. There's some great candidates for this one this season, and a couple even left off the list, which shows you how good it has been. But the men that have made the order is David Guillon at Reims, Christophe Galtier at Lille, Julien Stéphan at Rennes, and Jean-Louis Gasset at Saint-Etienne. I mean, you could have added 2 or 3 more names onto there, but we'll start, Rich, where else you would want to start, because Stéphan has had a great season, despite sort of league position at the end, but they've extended his contract. There's less worries about him going anywhere now, at least anyway. That's all settled, and terrific news for Rennes. And more than anything, that cup win was absolutely massive, and the Europa League run, it's all communicated into what has been an excellent year under Stéphan.
Yeah, I mean, he'll go down in folklore now. I mean, he could probably do absolutely nothing next season, and the Rennes fans would still love him for what he's done this season. I think certainly the style of play that he's looking to bring into Rennes, it's not fully there yet, but the style of play that he's looking to bring into Rennes is really good. The big thing with him is just how much the players connect with him. You can tell that he has got that sort of tap into his father Guy Stéphane and the French setup and their system of bringing the players and connecting with them at a sort of emotional level, if you like, getting that real connection between coach and players. And players that played under Stéphane in the youth setup, like Joris Gnagnon, have come out and praised him for just that thing. So it's great to see that the players really play for him. And we saw at the end of the season so many players coming out saying, Julien Stéphane needs to be here next season. So it's great that he's got that contract offer. I think the league form, it was a little bit patchy, but it coincided, I think, with that run in the Europa League. Rennes didn't really have the squad to manage both. It was quite refreshing to see them put so much into the Europa League. Obviously, cup success was fantastic. They had that brilliant night in Seville when they beat Real Betis. That brilliant night at Roazhon Park where they really did trounce Arsenal 3-1. Both obviously in the Europa League. It's been a really excellent first season. He's only 38. Certainly, I think the best young manager in France this season.
Yeah, there's been some terrific candidates for managers, but I'm sure many would disagree with you on that one, Rich. A lot to pick from, really, for you, Robin. But I'm going to go with the man that has got from bottom to top, really, in many ways, and that's Christophe Galtier. And not just that this season to take Lille where they have been to the Champions League and so forth, and a great turnaround under him, but the transformation of football under him as well. We associated Galtier teams along with Saint-Etienne as being incredibly defensive, and fair play to Jean-Louis Gasset for changing that around a little bit this season as well. But especially for Galtier, to have a more exciting system, to still have a bit of solidity, to get this team to where it has been, has been nothing short of tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. He certainly had the backing of the board out, is what I would say. But obviously, he's managed to use his experience at Saint-Etienne to get Jonathan Bamba to Lille, who we've discussed already as having been such an important part of their team. When he took charge 18 months ago, as you said, they were down in the dumps, they were in the relegation zone, and it looked distinctly like they could go down, particularly since they were under a transfer embargo and couldn't sign anybody. Over the course of the summer, they totally transformed that, and they've just been excellent this season. They've been largely very consistent, and I think any Ligue 1 team that can beat PSG as convincingly as they did towards the end of the season, put 5 past PSG at home, and in the style they did as well, was really formidable. That was a big statement of intent for me, and it shows that they can be a force next year in the Champions League if they can reinforce their squad properly.
Yeah, that's the only real shame of this Lille team, isn't it? That we're probably seeing the ends of it just as it's beginning as well, which is a real shame, because it'd be great to see how this team could really do in the Champions League if they could financially keep all these players together. But the final two, Rich, 2 great seasons for both of them. David Guillon got Reims to an incredible position. It slipped a little bit in the sort of the final third of the season, you can say, but the fact that they were defensive to becoming an entertaining team showed the sort of class that he's got. And Jean-Louis Gasset, unfortunately, who we won't be seeing next season at Saint-Etienne, but that's the sort of fever from the players after he said he was going, and that they wanted his assistant to take over, just shows how much affection and how much rapport he's built over such a short period of time with those players as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the mess that he sort of inherited. He sort of had to come in after the initial post Galtier crisis season or season and a bit. He was then brought in to try and sort of clean things up and sort things out. And sort things out he did. He's been pretty much a career assistant coach, first team coaches sort of here and there. But, this was sort of the big one, if you like. And, he got Saint-Etienne playing a really excellent brand of football. A brand of football I don't think we've seen from a Saint-Etienne team in quite some time. I think you probably have to go back to the days where they had, they had the likes of Aubameyang. It was an attack-minded, certainly for a Sanchez team, a very attack-minded style of football. Aided with some really good players like Remy Cabella, like Wabi Kazri, as we've mentioned. It wasn't that sort of stodgy defensive football that perhaps worked to a degree towards the end of the Galtier-Saint Etienne era. It was great to see. He's had such a fantastic career as Gasset. He confirmed that at the end of the season he got them fourth, so nearly got them third spot. That he was going to step away. He wanted to spend time with his family. He obviously recently has lost his wife. He wants to go back to the Montpellier region, which is where he's from and where he's got so much connection, and just basically wants to sort of just step away from it all. So it's quite an emotional story, really. So, but certainly one that has allowed him to go out at the very top, because this has certainly, I think, been one of Saint Etienne's most impressive seasons, probably since they won. You go back to when they won the Coupe de la Ligue in 2013. David Guillaume, again, another youngish manager. At one point, we all thought, are Rams actually going to do this? They were pushing for a European spot. Yes, it fell away slightly towards the end of the season, where they finished on a high, beating PSG 3-1 on the last day of the season. But again, a really excellent season. In terms of the sort of under the radar success stories, maybe they're just behind Nîmes and maybe just behind Strasbourg in terms of that 8th place finish. They were only 4 points off what in any other season probably would have been a European spot in terms of 6th spot. But again, a really excellent season, a really nice style of football as well. It's really refreshing to see these teams like Reims, like Nîmes coming up. They're not scared. They're not afraid. They come up. They play a really attractive style of football. They don't have the superstars in their team. They really don't. But what the likes of Guillaume are good at, getting the best out of those fringe players, out of those players that most of the teams would probably just gloss over. They bring them in, they nurture them, and he gets the best out of them. So he's done a really, really top job this season.
Yeah, credit to them. Credit to even a number of people that aren't on this list. There's been some real great jobs. Pelissier will miss out on next season, but he did excellent to keep Amiens up, and at Strasbourg as well. The job done by his name escapes me at the moment.
Thierry Laurey.
There we go, Laurey. Yes, there's too many names for me to say tonight that it's puzzling my brain a little bit. But the award goes to Christophe Galtier. I don't think it could really go to anyone else. He's had a tremendous season in the turnaround. He's done at Lille under trying circumstances. Have been really terrific. A Frenchman abroad now, and a number of good players that you would have already seen this season. It's Lucas Digne of Everton, Moussa Sissoko at Tottenham, Clement Lenglet at Barcelona, and Karim Benzema at Real Madrid. I'm going to keep this one a little bit briefer, at least. We just talk about two on this one. And Robin, I'll start with Karim Benzema with yourself. It was always going to be a little bit of a difficult season with Real Madrid losing Cristiano Ronaldo, and the big question really was, rather than the Gareth Bales and the East Coast of the world, was how Benzema would react in a post-Ronaldo world, and he reacted pretty superbly.
Yeah, for me, Benzema's been a player who's been hugely underrated at Real Madrid for several seasons now. I think he continues to be quite underrated at Real Madrid, despite having an excellent campaign. He's never quite managed to win the fans over entirely, but he's been the main man for them this season. Admittedly, it's been a poor campaign for them, certainly by Real Madrid standards, but he's come up with a lot of important goals, and consistently too. He's had to shoulder a huge amount of the burden, and he's done it very, very well.
Yeah, and looking at another big player this season, at least for this club at Everton, Lucas Digne, we know he's had talent previously, but he's maybe had a couple of sideways moves. PSG didn't work out. Barcelona seemed like a stretch, knowing that he'd be a number two. But at Everton, with Baines sort of winding down, he's really filled in the role there, Rich.
He has. I think he's been really impressive. And certainly, I think in terms of the Premier League, one of the underrated signings of the season. It's been great to see him get back to that. We obviously saw what a huge talent he was at Lille. As you say, moves to PSG, moves to Italy, moves to Barcelona. Haven't really worked out. Form dropped, lost his place in the France team, but has got the move back to Everton. Is playing week in, week out, playing really well. Fantastic set pieces, fantastic crosser of the ball. A really, really excellent left back, and has been rewarded with recall to the French team, and doesn't look out of place. I think he was voted Everton Player of the Season as well. So a really, really standout player, I think, this season.
Yeah, credit to him. He's really had a nice season for them, and a couple of players. Moussa Sissoko had a bit of a bounce back this year with Tottenham, given the fact that he was maligned a lot of times for France and for club for a while. It's great to see him get some recognition. And Lenglet sealing that spot as sort of centre back next to PK this season in a sort of downturn for Umtiti. It looks like it would be a fight between those two unless De Ligt is the one to join, which is a bit likely. But the award does go to, maybe slightly controversially, at least to abroad fans, maybe not to those in England. It is Luca Dean of Everton who takes the award. Maybe Benzema's Real Madrid struggling a little bit this season has convinced voters one way, but Dean has had an excellent season for Everton, and great to see him recover some form. French First Division Female Footballer of the Year, and a great list full of quality players, as Lyon tend to have really in female football at the moment. The list goes with Ada Hedeberg of Lyon, Amel Mari of Lyon as well as their teammate Eugenie Le Sommer, as well as Candidatu Diani of PSG. Some great names there, but there is possibly one headliner on that one, Rich. She might not be playing in the World Cup this summer because of her sort of standing against rights of pay in her home country of Norway. But Ada Hegerberg is a tour de force of football at the moment in women's football, and a great player to have on Lyon's side, and someone who's been incredibly influential.
She has. I mean, she is an absolute machine when it comes to goal scoring. 20 goals in 20 games represents actually quite a poor return for her when you consider that last season she got 31 goals in 20 games. I think obviously the standout story for her this season was that 16-minute hat-trick in the Women's Champions League final. A fantastic player, first winner of the female Ballon d'Or. There's nothing that she can't win. You look at her stats, the goal scoring stats are, they're just mind-boggling. We all think that the Messi and Ronaldo goal scoring stats are something. Hegerberg is in a completely different league when it comes to that. So phenomenal goal scorer. I think I would just bring mention to Amel Madri as well. I think a left back. It's not a glamorous position, but she has had an excellent season. 9 assists from left back, 10 goals this season. She's been a fantastic player, and another who we will see at the World Cup for France and on home soil, of course, this summer. But yeah, she's certainly had a stellar season as well.
Yeah, some great names in there, and PSG pushed Lyon all the way domestically, Robin. I mean, Le Sommer has been a great player for a number of years, and Diani sort of being the highlight of a great, finally, at least PSG side that fought what is really the best female team in not just in the nation but in Europe, and feared even maybe across the continent as well with the power that Lyon have got. But a great season for those both as well, and well deserving of their place on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say I don't get a chance to catch much women's football, but what I have seen of PSG and Lyon, they've both impressed me immensely. Obviously, PSG are looking to kind of take away Lyon's grip domestically and in Europe. But from what I've seen, Lyon appear to be streets ahead of everybody else. Certainly in the Champions League final, they were hugely impressive in terms of their physicality. They outplayed Barcelona all over the field. And yeah, it looks like they've got a pretty strong grip on the women's game at the moment.
Absolutely, and I suppose the winner of our award probably comes to surprise of no one. That is Ada Hegerberg, the current Ballon d'Or winner. She's like Rich said, a real tour de force of women's football at the moment, and it'd be a shame not to see it at the World Cup. But we absolutely stand by what she's saying in terms of workers' pay, that she wants to be getting the same as the men would do. And I'm pretty sure if there's any footballer that should be making that stand, it should be the best in the world at the moment, and she's truly deserving of that position. But on to our final award for this evening. We finally got through all the great names to head on to our final prestigious award, and that's the Ligue 1 Player of the Year, and 4 names that have a possibility of winning this: Angel Di Maria, Teji Savanier, Kylian Mbappe, and Nicolas Pepe. We've mentioned all 4 of them so far this evening, at least anyway, so I'm going to give this one a little bit more simple. Rich, who should win and why?
My vote goes for not only their achievements this season, but also the impact they have on their team. And if I base it on that, for me, it might come as a bit of a shock because Mbappe probably is the favourite, but I give that award to Pepe.
Robin?
I would like to give it to Pepe because I think his numbers have been brilliant, but I think Mbappe's one of the top 3 footballers in the world at the moment for me. I just can't see how you can overlook him for this award, so I'm going Mbappe.
Yeah, it's 2 excellent players, really. Di Maria, credit to him for an excellent season, but I think he's maybe outclassed in this quality, as well as Savanier, who has the numbers and has the underground approach, at least anyway, but he's maybe just left in the wind. But the winner of our Ligue 1 Player of the Year for 2019-20, oh, sorry, 2018-19, I apologise, not next year yet, but our winner for award this year is Nicolas Pepe of Lille. He's had a tremendous season. It's difficult to pick between 2 of the best players in Ligue 1 this season, and maybe the marginal vote for Mbappe for the Young Player of the Year. We had a fair amount of fan votes. It was very close, even in the fan voting between Pepe and Mbappe, and it's probably split our experts as well. Mbappe, well deserving of the 2 awards he's got tonight, but Nicolas Pepe is our League Player of the Year. Congratulations to everyone involved, and if you do want to see some extra interesting awards that we do have our Guardian article with Eric and Adam giving out some excellent awards, including goals of the season, saves of the season. Do check it out. It's a great little read as always. And that's all we have time for the Ligue 1 season. Thanks to Rich, Robin, and all of you listening at home. We will have one more show for you next week based on the French internationals, including last night's game as well as the game coming up at the weekend. So that will be back on Monday. But for now, the Ligue 1 season is in the books. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your summer. There will be plenty of speculation to come. But for now, à bientôt and goodbye.